Good morning. Thanks to Dick Kreitzer, Linda Sills, and all the EARCOS folks for making this possible and getting us here. I'm really honored and privileged to be here to introduce Yuka. And I actually never taught Yuka, which is probably why she's done so well and why she's a global citizen. I met her on the trail in Nepal going from Lukla to Tengboche and the Namche Bazaar. How many people have done that hike? A few. As you know, it's not an easy hike, and I met Yuka on the trail and got to know her really well, and that's where we became friends. And as teachers, you know, it's not often we get to say that we're friends with students, but this is a special student. And she's a really remarkable young lady. In fact, as we were hiking down the trail, the way we got to know each other is in front of us were some yaks. And she said, "Mr. Peavy, that's you." And I didn't understand what she was referring to. "It's a yak butt. It's you, Mr. Peavy. You're a yak butt." So for the rest of the trip, her and her friends proceeded to call me Mr. Yak Butt and variations that I'll let you imagine from there on out. And so from now on, I've been known as Mr. Yak Butt to Yuka. And I'm really proud of that because, as you know, when you're hiking and you're tired and you're exhausted, you develop special relationships, and that's how we became friends. Now, Yuka does everything. There's not a lot that she doesn't do. She's an athlete, she's a musician, she's a scholar, she's a global citizen. And all of that's very remarkable because only a few years ago, she didn't even speak English. So I want you to listen to her speech today and understand her background and her history. And the main reason I'm up here saying all these really nice things is because when I'm old and decrepit, which according to Yuka is next year, and she is really successful, she's going to send me lots of money and take care of me. So I'd like to introduce my good friend, Yuka Fukuda.
皆様おはようございます。 IS スケール12年生の福田由香と申します。今回はこのような素晴らしい機会をいただきスピーチできることをとても光栄に思います。 Good morning, teachers of EARCOS. I am Yuka Fukuda from the International School of Kuala Lumpur, and I am extremely honored to have a chance to speak at this conference. When Mr. Grant Millard, my high school principal, asked me if I wanted to give a speech for EARCOS, what was intimidating was not just the scope of the audience, but also that I will be speaking for all the students in our region. Add to that, 6 years ago, my English vocabulary was limited to, "My name is Yuka Fukuda. I am from Japan. How are you?" At that time, I wasn't even courageous to say this to anyone because I didn't know what to say afterwards. Looking back, I can see how my international experiences have forged a curiosity and open-mindedness. What motivated me to go beyond the normality and reach for the seemingly impossible internationalization of myself was what all students have in their heart, the aspiration to achieve more. My father's decision to move to Malaysia was my turning point. It is likely that my curiosity and positive outlook for other cultures was cultivated by my parents' unbiased and open perspective. Migrating to Malaysia immersed us in a society that functioned under totally different social norms. From Japan, where trains arrive exactly on time, and profuse apologies are offered if running a minute late, to Malaysia, where things run late at least 15 minutes. But that's not always true in our school, so please don't get wrong ideas about ISKL. Our first local Chinese wedding, which my father's colleague in Malaysia had invited our family, illustrates our first culture shock. The thick invitation card, which was red with fancy gold glitters, said 7:30 p.m. Feeling excited and honored, my family arrived at the big Chinese restaurant where everything was decorated in bright red at 7 p.m. because we Japanese must always be early for special occasions. We weren't even sure if 30 minutes early was early enough. When we found nobody waiting at the restaurant, we were very anxious and thought that we had come to the wrong restaurant. Surrounded by empty seats and tables, I cannot forget how my mother looked very anxious. In fact, we were not wrong. Finally, people began to arrive at 8 p.m. and the event started around 8:30 p.m. Were we to be angry at somebody or laugh at the differences between Japanese and Malaysian sense of time? We could only laugh. Now, having lived in Malaysia for 6 years, the bazaar is no longer bizarre. We understand. It's even part of my family's custom. At school, where every day brought a new culture shock, an openness to new perspectives was the foundation of becoming a global citizen. In this community, students from more than 50 countries' lives intertwined. I was introduced to my locker, the hallway, and the world of English. Along with familiar Asian faces were features that made me want to stop, to stare, and to touch. How beautiful were those blue but also green eyes. Is her hair naturally so pale? How does that boy have braids like 50 Cent, the famous rapper? It sounds like entering ISKL was very fun and entertaining to see such different people. But my struggle really began at that time. With a 10-word English vocabulary and difficulty in spelling, everything required double or triple effort. For example, the word for, which includes you, although it sounds nothing like you. Because of my limited English ability, I was ashamed to talk to anyone. Even when I wanted to know where room M208 was, I was too shy to ask for directions to random people around me. Consequently, lunchtimes with Japanese friends became my only oasis. This was how English became my hurdles to clear, the unbending, 1-meter high ones that wear athletes out, and the intangible ones of language and cultural meaning aren't easy to go over. My English made mistakes in classes and in conversations made me feel ashamed and nervous, just like my 400-meter hurdle race in my first track competition at IASS. On the straight side, where everyone